Good morning. I hope that you're all keeping really well. As you can see, we have returned back to our online lessons due to the recent changes in the restrictions. So although it's a little bit disappointing that our time together in class was quite brief, I am really thankful that we're still able to bring you these lessons. Now, our story today is in the book of Mark and in chapter 5, and we're going to learn about a man called Jairus. Now, Jarius was a ruler at the synagogue, and he would have been quite respected and quite known with all those in his community, and he would have had a great deal of responsibility in the synagogue where the people worshipped. But you see, today we read that Jairus had a real need, a real problem that he needed help with, and something that he was powerless to do anything about. You see, he had a daughter who was very ill, so ill that he actually thought that she may die. And he loved his daughter very much, and he wanted to do anything that he could do to get her well and back to full health again. Now, I don't know if you can maybe remember a time where you were unwell, and I'm sure your parents did everything they could so that you would be healed and be well again, whether it was getting you some medicine or calling the doctor. They would have done everything they could for you. So today, as we look at our story, let's just see where Jairus goes for help. And in verse 21, we read that Jesus had been travelling, and he is now in a ship, and as he comes into the shore and to the land, a large group of people are gathered together, ready to see him and hear him teach. So Jairus goes along so he can meet Jesus to ask for his help. And Jairus goes to meet Jesus, and when he sees Jesus, he falls at Jesus' feet. I think this shows a real sign of respect towards Jesus. Now, as I start reading in chapter 22, it tells us that, "Behold, there cometh one of the rulers of the synagogue, Jairus by name. And when he saw him, he fell at his feet, and besought him greatly, saying, My little daughter lieth at the point of death. I pray thee, come, lay thy hands on her, that she might be healed, and she shall live. And Jesus went with him, and much people followed him and thronged him." So this tells us that Jairus begs Jesus, "Come to my home, lay your hands and pray over my daughter, so that she might be healed." Well, Jesus goes with Jairus and travels to his home. This journey probably took them a lot longer than they'd expected, because of the large crowd that would have followed and would have kept talking to Jesus and caused him to interruptions along this journey. Well, as Jairus and Jesus get closer to the house, there's a message brought to them telling them that this young girl has died. "Don't trouble the master any further," they say. They probably thought, this is too late now. The girl has died. Can you imagine just how Jairus must be feeling now he's heard the news that his daughter has died? He had such hope. Jesus was on his way. He was coming to his home. Jesus was going to lay his hands and heal his daughter, and now his daughter was dead. He must have felt heartbroken. But we read in verse 36 that Jesus gives him some real words of comfort. Jesus says to him, "Be not afraid, only believe." Jesus wants Jairus to be comforted and saying, "Don't be afraid and worried. Believe and trust in me," he's telling him. Well, as they get closer to the house, they hear a lot of noise, and this noise is of people crying and weeping over this dead child. Well, as Jesus goes into the house, he takes with him 3 of his closest disciples who had been traveling on this journey with him, and he just ushers all the other people out of the house. But he says to them, Why are you making all this weeping and this noise? The child is not dead, but she's sleeping." Well, the people sort of laugh at Jesus because they don't understand what he's trying to say to them. So he goes into the house with the disciples and with the parents of this young girl, and he goes into her room. And in verse 41, it tells us that he took the damsel by the hand, and the word in the Bible there is damsel, which is just another word for a young girl. And he takes her by the hand, and he says unto her, Talitha cumi, which is being interpreted, Damsel, I say unto thee, arise. And straightway the damsel arose and walked. Jesus takes the young girl by the hand, and he tells her to rise up. And we read that she does indeed just wake up, get up from the bed, and she begins to walk around. Now those in the room, the disciples and the parents, were astonished as they see what Jesus had just done. This was another miracle that Jesus had done. By his power, he brought this young girl back to life from death. Now he has the power because he's God's son. He tells the parents, go and bring her food to eat. And she eats and she walks around. So we understand that Jesus has not only brought her back from death, but she's totally healed, and she's able to walk around and eat and behave normally. Now, if you remember earlier, I said that the people laughed at Jesus when he said that she wasn't dead, that she was only sleeping. But it's important to understand that the girl had died. But Jesus used the words sleeping to try and, because he knew what was going to happen, but to give the picture or image of her just being, it's like a temporary thing, that he knew he was going to take her by the hands and tell her to rise, and she was going to get up off that bed just as if she was waking from her sleep. You see, Jesus is able to do the impossible things. That's such a wonderful thing to consider today. So as we listen to this story, I hope that it's encouraged you as we think about the great power that Jesus has to heal. But you know, today Jesus still has the power in our lives. He's able to do great things in our lives if only we believe. Now Jairus had a real problem. He needed help. So whatever our problem is and whatever help we need to go to Jesus. And at these times that are quite hard, so there may be things right now that are worrying you and causing you to be a bit afraid. You don't know when you're going to next go back to school. You don't know when you're going to see your friends again. And sometimes not knowing what's going to happen can really make us feel quite afraid. But you know, Jesus tells us today to not be afraid, but just believe. And I hope that's a real comfort to us, as it was to Jairus in our story today. So thank you for joining this lesson. I hope it's been a blessing to you. Just remember that if we believe, Jesus can do great things in our life through his power. So do join us again next week, where we're going to look at another story about Jesus using his great power to heal someone. So have a great week. Do keep safe. God bless.